Hi there, board gamers. It's Michael Windsor from Meeple of Windsor, and I'm here to give you a detailed explanation on how to play Aegis. So here's how you play Aegis. We're going to start with how you win. What's the objective of the game? So there's 3 different ways to win. The first way is to get 5 unrevealed cards. The second way is to eliminate all other players by having them reveal 4 of their cards. Lastly, some leaders have an alternate win condition, and you can use those alternate win conditions to win the game. Each turn, a player is going to simply do 2 things. Draw a card from the deck, peek at it, and put it face down in front of them. Afterwards, they're going to use one of their 8 actions. Now, each turn is going to consist of 6 different phases. Obviously, I went over the draw and action phases, but there are also other phases that come into play sometimes as well. So the begin phase is the phase where you execute your beginning of turn effects. The draw phase is where you just simply draw a card and put it face down in front of you. The action phase is where you use one of your 8 actions. The end phase is much like the begin phase. You use your end of turn effects. The demise phase is when any player that has 4 of their cards face up and revealed in front of them is eliminated from the game and must reveal all of their cards and discard their soldiers. Lastly, we have the conquest phase. Now, if you happen to have 5 unrevealed cards during the conquest phase on your turn, you win the game. So let's give an example of how the begin phase would work. So I have these 3 items in front of me. Now I can, since it's my turn, I can choose which order I want to use them in. So I'm going to choose to use the bear tokens effect first. So since I have this bear in front of me, I'm simply going to lose 1 soldier. Then I'm going to give the grand penguin 2 soldiers as sacrifices. However, I don't have any soldiers. And then third, I'm going to choose to use the horn to gain 2 soldiers. So you can use order of operations to give yourself the best outcome. Okay, next we're going to give an example of how the draw phase would work. So you simply just draw a card and place it face down in front of you. You may peek at it. However, let's say we don't have any cards in the deck. We're going to go ahead and get a new year, and that year is going to become the new deck. Why years are important is they help you understand how many cards a player may have. So let's say only 3 years have been used in the game. That means you know that people can only have 3 barracks at most until the 4th year comes into play. So definitely keep track of what years have been applied to the game. Next, we're going to give an example of how the action phase works. We're going to use one of these 8 actions right here. I will go over how each action works later, but simply what you're going to do is you're going to make a claim or state what action you're going to do and coherently explain to each player how you're going to apply it. So let's say I use Warlord Poom's laboratory action. It says you may gain a card and then reveal one of your unrevealed cards. So I have my 1 card that I gain, and I'm going to reveal one of my unrevealed cards. And then I'm going to use the Retribution ability, because when a card is revealed, he uses his ability. However, before I do any of those things, I have to explain to each player that I'm going to use that, giving somebody the ability to call my bluff and say, hey, I don't believe you have that laboratory action. We'll go more into bluffing later. Now we're going to give an example of the end phase. It's much like the begin phase. You get to choose the order in which effects go into play. So I would use the dagger to reveal one of my cards. I would use the ballista to make other players discard 2 of their soldiers. And I can choose to do the ballista or the dagger in any order. Let's go over an example of how the demise phase would work. So, if you happen to have 4 cards revealed, you are eliminated from the game. And if any other player has 4 cards revealed, they're eliminated from the game. So when a player is eliminated from the game, they're no longer an active player in the game. They have to discard all their soldiers and reveal any cards they have to help give other players clues on what cards have and haven't been used. Even when a player is eliminated, they're still going to carry out their estate card effects when they come into play. I'll explain more about how those work later. However, we'll just go ahead and say the chapel would remain in effect and the tailor would be executed because it would be revealed at the moment of that elimination. Lastly, we're going to go over the conquest phase. Very simple, there's no real exceptions. If you have 5 unrevealed cards on your turn during the conquest phase, you win. Even if another player happens to have 6 unrevealed cards for whatever reason, it is still your turn, so you would be the winner. So let's go over how the actions work. The first 2 actions on the top with the orange borders, those are known as non-bluff actions. The first action is the recruit action, which you gain 2 soldiers. So I'm going to replace these 3 soldiers with a 5 soldier token. That is me gaining 2 soldiers. The next action you can do is the war action. So I may select any player to go to war with. Now, the war action has 4 different phases. First is the designate phase. Now, the designate phase simply just means if I'm the person choosing to go to war, that means I'm the attacker, and the player that is selected is the defender. The next is the battle phase. The battle phase is also quite simple. You simply just determine which player has more soldiers. There are 3 different soldier tokens. The clear one represents 1 soldier, the blue one represents 5 soldiers, and the orange one represents 20 soldiers. Warlord Poom has 7, Queen Lyra II has 3. Next, you're going to go to the resolution phase. So since Queen Lyra II had less, she's going to reveal 2 of her cards. Lastly, we're going to go to the casualties phase. So no matter how many soldiers you have, both players are going to lose half. So this player has 7, so they're going to discard 4 and go down to 3. This player has 3, so they're going to discard 2 and go down to 1. That is how the war action works. Now don't forget, this is an unblockable action. It has the Pierce icon. It is a dark shield icon with a null symbol on it. That basically means that action cannot be blocked. Next, we're going to go over bluff actions. So bluff actions are different from non-bluff actions because non-bluff actions don't require a card. Bluff actions also don't require a card. However, if someone calls you on your bluff, you have to have that card. If you don't have that card, then that action is nullified and you have to reveal one of your cards. Now, there are 4 bluff actions: Temple, Mason, Barracks, and Treasury. Now let me go over what all 4 of them do, as they are the same for all characters as well as the first 2 actions. The Temple action simply allows you to give any revealed card owned by any player and transfer it to another player. Once that card is transferred, the matching action would be sanctioned. So Queen Lyra II, her Mason action would be sanctioned because she got the Mason card. And the sanction is basically an item that gives you an unfavorable action in substitute of the original action. Here's the Mason action. So the Mason action gives you 2 different options. First, you can give the wall to any player, or you can alternatively choose to discard 2 items in play. This is the wall. Now the wall allows you to guard against any actions except for war actions and other actions with the piercing icon, which is that black shield with the little red null icon on it. Now, when you have the wall, while you are at war, but only as the defender, you act as you have 5 additional soldiers, except for during the casualties phase. So it adds to your count, essentially. If you lose a war as the defender and you have the wall, you have to discard this wall. Let's say a player across the table is going to use the barracks action. The barracks action simply makes all the other players, so let's say we're going clockwise, discard one of their unrevealed cards in turn order. So she would discard a card, and he would discard a card. And those discarded cards would not be revealed and be returned to the deck, and they would be shuffled into the deck. The next action is the treasury action. It's basically a better recruit action. So you would gain 5 soldiers as opposed to 2 soldiers. Finally, the last 2 actions are the laboratory and library actions. These actions are unique and different to each leader. However, like the last 4 actions I explained, they do require a card, or at least you have to bluff about having that card. Let's go over calling bluffs. This is a major element of the game. You may call a player's bluff when they use an action. So the person that claims that they have the card and are going to use the action, they're the declarer. And the player that doesn't believe that player and calls their bluff is the caller. Now, basically how it works is, let's say Warlord Poom. He wants to use the barracks to make all their players discard one of their cards. Queen Lyra II could say, I don't believe you, I call your bluff, liar. Any way you would like to say, I don't believe you. That player would then reveal one of their cards. So since Warlord Poom in this scenario had this barracks, Queen Lyra would have to reveal one of her cards, bringing her further away from victory and closer towards demise. Now, let's say Warlord Poom didn't have the barracks and revealed a different card. Warlord Poom would have to keep that card revealed, and that barracks action would be nullified, so that turn would be completely lost to that Warlord Poom character. Priority takes an important part in this. So if 2 players call bluff at the same time, you're going to go in turn order, and the first player in that order is going to be the caller. Or, let's say if effects happen simultaneously, the player who is currently taking their turn would choose who is the person being affected first if multiple players are being affected. Now, whenever a player must reveal a card and they cannot reveal a card, they simply gang a brig, and this brig means that they're going to lose their next turn. Now we're going to go over how guarding works. Notice that there are pierce icons on some of the actions. Those actions cannot be guarded against or protected by the wall. However, let's say a player uses their barracks action, and they're like, every other player has to discard their card. So in turn order, players discard their cards, or they could say, I guard against that because I also have a barracks. Now, that guard can go through, or Warlord Poom can say, I don't believe you, and call their bluff. And then standard bluff rules would apply. In this event that barracks is guarded against, it does not affect the player that guarded against it. It would still affect every other player though. Now, if Warlord Poom calls their bluff and they don't reveal the barracks, then they do not guard against that, and they have the consequence of their bluff being called and it failing. So when an action is undone, this is known as a thwart or thwarting. And that player not only doesn't get to use that action, but that uses up their action phase for that turn. Alright, so let's go over types of cards. There are 3 types of cards. The normal one is the building card. So building cards allow you to use your bluff actions. Then we have the trigger estate card. A trigger estate card basically executes a one-time effect. You read the effect and perform it when the card is revealed. Lastly, we have the condition estate card. A condition estate card has an effect that remains in play while the card is revealed. Let's go over card management. So there's different keywords in card management. We're going to go over ganging, revealing, discarding, sifting, peeking, and banishing. First, we're going to start with ganging. So let's say this is the deck. If I gang a card, I put it face down in front of me and do not reveal it. I may peek at it at any time. When I peek at a card, that basically means I'm looking at it, not showing it to any other players. When I reveal a card, that means that the card is flipped face up and revealed to all players. When I'm discarding a card, let's say I have this card, I'm basically not revealing it. I'm going to discard it and shuffle it into the deck. Sifting through cards allows me to, let's say I'm sifting at the first 3 cards of the deck. I'm basically looking at cards of the deck. So I'm searching the deck. That's what sifting means. I'm peeking at cards within the deck. And then banishing, let's say this card is banished, it's simply removed from the game and placed in a banishment zone. Now those cards may be returned to the game from the banishment zone, but they may not. Other than in terms of being banished, they are simply not in the game. There are a vast amount of items in this game. Alright, we're going to go over the 3 different types of items. There are condition items. So like the horn, condition items are a constant effect that remain in play while a player has that item. A consumable item is an item a player can use on their turn, but only on their turn, and they cannot use it on the turn that they received it, if they received it on that turn. Now, if it was some other player's turn and they received it, then they could use it. Lastly, there is the reactive consumable item, and basically how the reactive consumable item works is it's just like a consumable item, but it can be used at any time during any player's turn when the moment arises, in which case they would be able to use it. It's important to keep in mind that there's an overflow rule. Many items there are only one of a kind of. So let's say a player gangs the horn, and then another player chooses to gang the horn. They would take that horn from that player and gain possession of it. All the chits in the game are considered to be items. Anything that is not a chit, for example, this soldier token and this die, that's not an item. The only exception is the inkwell, and the inkwell is just to help you know which player gave the treaty to who. So these are all tokens in the game. Here are the leader mats. Now they have different things to note. So this right here basically is the addition or expansion that this leader came from. This is their difficulty rating. Characters with a 1 star are the easiest to use. If they have 5 stars, they're the most difficult to learn how to use. Here are the 8 actions, of course, the name of the character, quick reference at the top letting other players know quickly how their ability works. You have the ability right here, you have their history, their origin, that's where they're from. There are different variants of this game, and these variants that are displayed there are banned for that leader, or at least not recommended if you play that variant with that particular leader. That is a detailed explanation on how to play Aegis and its many elements. Now, if you'd like to learn how to set up the game, you can view the setup video. If you'd like to play Aegis for free, you may try our print and play on our website, mowindsor.com, or you can simply click on the link in the description below.
This is a video from Meeple of Windsor, LLC. If you liked this video, click on the like button. If you have something to say, please leave a comment below. Don't forget, you have the option to subscribe. Furthermore, you may purchase our board game products at mowindsor.com. Thank you for watching.